Hello and welcome to another episode of VR Download, a weekly show where we discuss industry news and all the fun stuff that you, our audience, want to hear about. Hi, I'm your host, Kyle. And, we've got, as we always do, live on YouTube, the chat. And I want to say hi to several regulars and some new people, too. Why not? Let's talk. Hello, Fantaz1986. Traveling Man 3775, Robert Quinones, sexy bicycle. I see that little thing next to your name. Hi, Isaiah Calkin. Hello, world. Yes, all right. Who else do we have? Seth Sains, Hawk 107. So tell your friends in the VR community if they just want to hear their name on live on YouTube to just come and check out our show on Mondays at 1 p.m. Pacific-ish. So let's see who we have on the panel with us today. Over to my left.
Hello, everyone. Ian Hamilton here in Arkansas. I've just been to California where I've been messing with the Ray-Ban glasses and played on a full tennis court, Quest Arena, this weekend. It was great.
Nice.
I'm David Heaney, and just quick correction, we're live on noon PT on Mondays. Noon 30 today, but usually noon PT on Mondays.
You know, we've changed the time, so it's Monday. Just whatever time Monday. See, this is the reason why you want to have that little bell on to let it like and subscribe. See, so I can be wrong, and you can still know exactly what time the show kicks on. So thank you, Heaney, for that correction there, because I can't keep track of time anymore. It's time, space.
Yeah, let YouTube handle that for us. We don't
Right.
need to. We don't need to do
Right.
that anymore. Let YouTube take care of that.
I like that. Ian, as we were talking about our lineup for today of the wonderful news pieces that we're going to bring to you, Ian says, "Oh, wait. I just put out an article about something fun, something that is very near and dear to many of our hearts, some updates to virtual desktop." So, Ian, late breaking news. What do we got?
So Guy Godin, the creator of Virtual Desktop, he's right there in our comments. So if you're a Virtual Desktop user, say hi, ask him questions. I will read them out to him if it's a useful one. So Virtual Desktop got an update this morning. Basically, if you've got a 120 hertz monitor for your PC, you can stream flat screen games to your Quest at 120 hertz now. So that's actually a pretty compelling, on your roof monitor now you can have for your flat screen games at 120 hertz. Virtual Desktop had they were first with 120 hertz wireless support for VR games. Of course, earlier this year they beat Airlink. Godin beat Airlink to supporting that, and then there's been other features that Godin has added to Virtual Desktop this year, including synchronous space warp, I think is what it's called, to produce a to run more comfortably higher end experiences and still have it look great on the Quest wirelessly. So the new videos, there's a new videos tab as well. So the 120 hertz is kind of the big thing to me, but most people will also get pretty excited for this videos feature where you can download locally your videos that are stored on your PC and play things that way in a much smoother way going forward. That's something that Quest has been desperate for.
I want to ask a question about that, Ian, or maybe even Guy. Maybe you're the right person because you kind of wrote this. So let's say I have a side-by-side video. It's like 4.6 gigabytes, and it's sitting local on my virtual desktop computer that I stream from. Does it dump the whole 4.6 gig onto my headset, or does it stream at a small amount each time? Is there a bit rate? What are some of the details? Do we even know?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there was mention in sort of the release notes that they will do some stuff on the fly, just encoding on the fly from your PC to your Quest. but I'm really curious. I've got files I would love to throw at this, and I haven't had a chance. We had access to test this out early, and it's been so busy. It's been kind of crazy. We haven't had a chance to actually give it a go yet. But these are big updates to like sort of a cornerstone utility. Lots of people love AirLink. It's working out great for people. But for virtual desktop out there, these are going to be some great utility features.
So it looks like Guy answered yes. Side-by-side stereo will work. That's awesome. If the video exceeds 70 megabits per second, it will get re-encoded on the fly. So if you have because I happen to own the physical copy of a 3D Blu-ray movie, and I have encoded it myself onto my computer for consumption of my headset. Have I hit all the good spots there, Ian? Okay. So I want to stream that now to my headset. If it's 6 gigabytes of data, so it'll stream. I wonder if is it sitting in like some sort of cache? Am I going to have to clear my virtual desktop cache, or does that kind of just go off into the ether? Will it is it like working like Plex? You know what I mean?
What's the limit? Yeah, how much you can, because there's people with lots of very big libraries. So I definitely understand. Yeah, I if you can share any light on that, Guy, that would help us understand sort of what the limits are, because people are going to try to push this, I think, immediately. And he mentioned in the comments here that some of this stuff is configurable in the future, but right now there's that 70 megabits per second re-encoding limit right now.
Well, that's cool. I mean, it's going to be good. It just stays in memory and gets discarded as it plays. Guy, that all the answers. Thank you, Guy. You're always welcome in this chat and to speak your opinion and answer these questions. This is fantastic, and I'm sure the rest of the chat group, the rest of the audience really appreciate you being here. So kudos to you. See, now I'm glad we added that at the last minute. That was really good. A lot of questions got answered. Now I know what I'm doing tonight is I'm going to be streaming. Who knows? I've got Ready Player One. I've got some Marvel movies, all legally owned. So, yeah.
Well, all right. So I guess I'll add here. I mean, maybe I'll do a pitch here that if you've got virtual desktop back at home, he's saying it doesn't use the storage on your Quest unless you click download. One of the features that you can do is you can paste a link on your PC, a YouTube link, and have that come up on your Quest. And that's kind of I still haven't tried that. If you want to really explain how that works, but I'm curious how, if I wanted to watch this show in virtual desktop, is it as simple as just pasting the link to this video on virtual desktop on your PC, and then boom, it's sort of like available for me to watch on Quest pretty easily?
The bigger question is that how much overhead would it be for Heaney to add stereo 360 or even 180 cameras into the studio to be able to exclusively consume this show through virtual desktop? Oh man, see, now I'm thinking hard. I don't know. Heaney's going, oh man, Kyle, why do you keep coming up with this stuff? But that's okay.
Yeah, copy a YouTube URL in your browser, then click paste URL in the videos tab, and that's it.
Brilliant. See? He's sharing his clipboard across the metaverse. Guy Godin has invented right here on this show right now, exclusively, the metaverse clipboard.
Oh no, it's been invented. It can't be patented by Facebook or Microsoft now. It's been proven to be a thing by Guy Godin. All right, so you've seen it here first. Reference this in the future. It's public knowledge. There's public,
Yeah. Okay, well, that was fun. Thank you, Guy. Again, always a pleasure to have you here. All right, Ian, should we dig into some other news? Because we've got some fun stuff for you as we will continue to play the clip up here of Virtual Desktop, the free rotating commercial here. All right. Our first big piece of news. Andrew Bosworth, Boz to the metaverse community, is going to take over as Facebook's CTO in 2022. Let's see. It looks like Facebook VP of AR VR, Andrew Bosworth, will take over as Facebook CTO after current CTO Mike Schrepfer announced plans to step down sometime next year and to become one of the fellowship. I'm not really sure.
The fellowship,
what-
yeah, that's just
Yeah.
guiding on the journey. I don't know why. Why isn't Carmack a fellow? Like, what is a fellow? I don't understand. It sounds like a title that would fit Carmack. Did he just not care to?
Yeah, I assume when Carmack becomes a little less involved, he'll probably become a fellow. It's interesting why didn't it? It does seem it would be a better title than consulting CTO, whatever exactly that's supposed to mean.
Bosworth explained like it was a reference to Sherlock Holmes at some point. That's what Sherlock Holmes was for various crimes.
For Scotland Yard, he was just a fellow. For he's a jolly good fellow. Okay, so what do we think about this? I mean, obviously, to us in the VR community, Boz has always just been, Boz of the VR group, and now it's something a little bit bigger. I mean, what do we think?
Well, I mean, I made this joke on Twitter. I'll just throw this out there that Zuckerberg sat for an interview with a news reporter out there in Horizon, and they recorded sort of like some real life footage as well as their Horizon perspective footage with cameras set up in there. And I made this joke on Twitter. It's like, we've got an empty seat in our studio waiting for one of these people to join us for an interview at some point to talk about some of the hard questions we have about AR, VR, metaverse, all this stuff. And there's a lot of commentary today. Basically, if you're listening to this on the recorded podcast, what happened was they announced they're going to, I think, donate some money to some research projects into the ethics surrounding all of this usage of the metaverse, as they call it. So we've got the reason I bring all that up is we actually sat down with Bosworth pretty recently in Horizon and got some quotes from him on our website for the first time. We were able to pose some questions one-to-one in an on-the-record way with the future CTO of Facebook. And that's as close as we've gotten to sort of the word of Mark Zuckerberg as we've been able to get. We've had Jason Rubin sort of offer very clear comments in the past on sort of Oculus's vision and its direction with games. And PR has been always talking to us about, answering our questions whenever they can. There's obviously we get lots and lots of no comments, but we need to have people like Bosworth and Zuckerberg sort of answer for how these technologies are going to be used and being able to be accessible in workrooms, Horizon, and hopefully in the studio eventually is something that will happen. But Bosworth there, I've seen it sort of suggested that he would be on a short list for I think succeeding Zuckerberg himself as CEO of the company, if Zuckerberg wanted to go, to Mars or something.
You really think so?
I think, yeah. I mean, I think he's doing so much publicly. He's kind of leading the way. Zuckerberg himself is trying to do this more public-facing image thing where he's posting to his personal feed. He's being more in the comments of sort of his own posts, making more frequent posts, showing you even with the Ray-Ban sunglasses, they're trying to kind of promote that they're just average Joes to some extent, but they're also accessible. I think is what they're trying to give this sense of. Bosworth doing these AMAs all the time on Instagram is answering a lot of people's questions. So I mean, like, he is like out there answering questions, but that's sort of choosing which questions you want to answer is not the same as being pressed to answer questions that maybe you don't want to talk about, or maybe you need time to kind of do follow-ups on. And that's what we would love to have, these people in our studio in the future, or have more interviews in Horizon. Workrooms was a great platform for that whole briefing about announcing their Workrooms product, and it's a great platform for interviews. So hopefully we'll be talking to the future CTO of Facebook more often.
So Ian, how would you feel if Andrew Bosworth said, "I will come and be on the show, but I'll only allow Kyle to interview me"? Would your head explode?
Maybe, yeah. You guys could both get under my skin. Quite. You could just make. I'll be in the comments asking my questions. You can go ahead and screen them for him, and if he doesn't want to answer my questions in the comments, and you don't want to read to them, ask those questions of Bosworth, then, well,
Yeah.
No,
I have some hard questions for Boz. I think he needs to answer, like, if you could be any flavor of ice cream, what would you be and why? That sort of thing. Did you agree with who won last year's The Voice? I mean, these are hard questions that I would like to ask him. All right. James here in the comments is saying that Boz has a good podcast. Ian, how come
to the
you
future?
how come you were not a guest on his podcast?
Oh yeah,
he can ask you questions.
That's right. He can ask you questions.
Imagine that.
That was the subject of his first podcast, was debating who's doing the interviewing here. Yeah.
So Ian, if you could be any flavor of ice cream, what would you be and why? No,
Rocky Road or birthday cake? I don't know. Chocolate.
Oh, Rocky Road. Huh, that's nuts. I didn't expect you to say that. So what else do we have to say about that?
Well, so I put this line in I made sure this was in the story where we were talking about it. It's just he's tasked with making sure that the future generations of Facebook eyewear are, I think I heard the word best in class being uttered by Zuckerberg in the Ray-Bans announcement. So like he's going to be tasked with delivering on this bet that Zuckerberg has been kind of planning for a decade now, almost a decade. And so like he's got to deliver, and so like he's the person to answer for whether this metaverse comes together exactly like Zuckerberg has been hoping it will be in Facebook's favor.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. Heaney, what do you got?
I was just going to say, I just think this signals the change of Facebook from a software company into a hardware company. The previous CTO, Schrepfer, as you said, who they call Shrep in the same way that they call Bosworth Boz, he was very focused on AI, on the software applications, such as trying to sort out harmful content with AI. But Bosworth, as you say, for years now has been in charge of Facebook's hardware division, both VR and the portal video calling devices. So you can see if Zuckerberg's putting him into CTO while not actually taking away his hardware responsibilities, I think that sends a very clear signal as to what kind of company Facebook wants to become over the next few years.
You're raising an interesting point here. You said if Zuckerberg put him in the CTO position, was that Mark Zuckerberg's? I'm sorry, Zuck, as they call him at the office. Is that his decision to make him CTO, or was it the board?
Zuckerberg is unique of all of these tech companies in that he has a controlling ownership of Facebook. He is essentially in charge of Facebook, and as far as we know, and as far as all of Facebook's announcements in the past, and from the books I've read where journalists explore Facebook on the inside, Zuckerberg is the one that makes all the decisions like this.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess
I mean, they're
Zuck
going to
and
be.
Shrep and Boz. Yeah. I mean, they all have fun little nicknames.
I mean, all right. So the embargo lifted on the game release date, right? We can at least talk about that. We don't need to get into it, but I'm just confirming here that like they've already announced the some of their biggest things ahead of Connect, in my opinion. Like, so we're gonna have Connect here coming up in a couple weeks, and what are they're gonna have? What announcements are we in for? Because like, I kind of feel like we're on the verge of kind of like an Apple rumor hysteria.
That is our next topic.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so let's I guess let's move on to that because
Well, no, I mean, I know what you're saying, Ian, is if they're doing all these fun little announcements now, what's left for Connect? And it could be
Our
that
final topic.
maybe there is all sorts of crazy stuff for Connect. So yeah, so stay tuned because number 5 may shock you. I don't know. All right, let's get into the next piece of news though, because we're all right, we're going to talk about this yet again. Apple AR VR headset to launch second half of 2022? Question mark. Taiwanese news outlet Digitimes, or Digitimes. Anyway, Digitimes claims Apple's rumored AR VR headset will enter production Q2 of 2022 and launch in the second half of the year. Is this a rumor mill, or are we reporting alleged, supposed, actual news? How long have we been talking about this Apple AR VR headset that right now is starting to feel very Duke Nukem Forever-ish to me?
Yeah, so for years there's been talk of Apple's headsets, of course, from rumor mills, but it's only recently in the past 18 months that we've started to see reliable sources report on it. So we had The Information has reported on this 2022 launch year. Bloomberg has reported on it. Ming-Chi Kuo, who is an Apple leaker usually, and provides kind of predictions about Apple's product plans sometimes years in advance and has a very good rating for it, has predicted it. And so now we have Digitimes, who are very close to supply chain sources in Taiwan, where most of the world's chips are actually produced, is saying that their supply chain sources tell them that this headset is in the second phase of prototype testing. It is entering mass production in the second quarter of next year, and it is planned for a launch later in the year. Now, as you say, this isn't confirmed. Apple has not in any way announced the VR headset, but over the past 18 months, we've gotten this picture of a headset from all of these sources that sounds fairly consistent in that we're talking about something that has color cameras for very high quality pass through, which will be used for mixed reality. We haven't heard anything about gaming like controllers, but The Information did report that Apple is working on their own controller, which may kind of slot onto your fingers. So the details that we've heard on pricing, Ming-Chi Kuo predicted around $1,000. But one of the interesting things in this report, the other thing that they're reporting other than their expected production time and launch year, is that they say high component costs may drive the price up to $2,000 or above. And they say that this is partially related to the fact that the frame is made from a high strength, lightweight magnesium alloy containing rare earth elements. And they suggest that it may weigh as little as 100 grams. And Ming-Chi Kuo, in a report a few months ago, suggested that the headset will weigh somewhere between 100 and 300 grams. Now, that's very notable to me because the Quest 2 that we're wearing now is 550 grams. So we're talking about a product that, while the rumors suggest will be priced high, the rumors also suggest could be extremely lightweight and comfortable, more so than anything we've actually seen to date.
Man, it sounds like a fantastic piece of kit, but I mean, we still don't have like a real picture of what this will look like. I mean, what do we know definitively? Like, we don't know anything definitively. There's nothing that has been confirmed by Apple. There's nothing that has been announced by Apple. There's nothing that's even been suggested by Apple other than Tim. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I
Segue.
cut you off. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Segue.
Do it. Yeah, you do the thing.
Tim Cook has said that he's really bullish on AR and that he's their number one fan. He is AR's number one fan. Now, I don't really, is this just another Apple claiming to be first thing, or I don't know, but take the lead, Ian, from there.
Yeah, I don't have it in my notes here, the exact quote. Heaney, hopefully maybe you can find the quote if you can pull it up, but he's been commenting on AR for quite a long time. So he's seen AR being this very profound thing. And I think that might be the word that he used in discussing it was profound. And, you know, I'm seeing some people in the comments talking about this. Where was it? There was the first person to comment this, that Apple waits till it's ready. Yeah. So bicycle. I feel like Apple just doesn't talk about, acknowledge big hardware like this till it's ready. And we listen very closely to the words coming out of the mouths of these CEOs because it changes over time. They speak vaguely, they speak positively or negatively, like in vague ways about various things. But Cook's language in talking about AR now and the way he's talking about it now suggests he has a product in mind to me. Like that's, I think, the switch over in my, like he's so confident in how profound AR is going to be. It sounds to me like he's actually pretty ready for what's coming. And I think that's the message I take away from his most recent kind of I believe in AR type thing.
Well, he went another step and said something that yes, he's number one fan and he thinks it's a profound technology and all of that. But actually, the most valuable part of what he said recently is that AR is going to be one of those technologies that we can't imagine that we ever lived in a world without it. And that sounds very similar to the way that Steve Jobs used to talk about the iPhone. And in that same, it's an evolution. It's a revolution. It's it's become part of our world.
You know, I think about this like Steve Jobs very famously compared computers to a bicycle for your mind. It's a simple machine that makes humans way more efficient than they ever were before. And I'm curious to see if AR, like, what's the analogy for AR? Like, it's such a new paradigm in computing that, like, it's gonna help you do more, but because you're doing more or because you're doing different things, what things you're gonna stop doing? And that's how, like, significant it will be. It's going to be such a significant change to everything. And I think the rumor mill is just kicking into overdrive now. It really is. And I think Facebook is going to be there, with the rumor mill doing its own thing on Facebook's side. And then, of course, we've got Microsoft. You can never forget Microsoft, which has 2 generations of standalone AR headset, as well as this massive military contract to develop this technology. When are they going to announce?
Yeah, it's notable. I think Microsoft may not actually enter the consumer. If you look at the sheer size of those contracts they're getting in enterprise and with the US Army, as you say, and the US Army contract is actually so large that they built a third generation of HoloLens specifically for that one contract. So, they're making more money off that one contract than the entire rest of the AR hardware industry is making off everything combined, and probably a lot of the VR industry as well. So I think if you look at their strengths in enterprise, it's it's questionable whether Microsoft will bother to compete with the likes of Apple and Facebook and potentially Google and Amazon going forward.
Well, what'll end up happening is that Microsoft will let the HoloLens technology mature in its enterprise form and figure out all the kinks and bugs and figure out how to microtize it and all those other weird gibberish words till they come out with something that can be consumer ready, that's already been tested and vetted out on the literal field, and then they can bring it in and bring it home. A lot of consumer technologies start out as military application that slowly gets adopted into consumer use. So maybe HoloLens is just the new GPS, or the new, pick a technology. There's plenty of things out there.
So I think about this a lot, where at some point the creators of these headsets, if you go down a checklist of like what features it needs to have in order to be a mass market device, like it's a very clear like checklist that mostly has been outlined by Abrash at the various Oculus Connects. So he's like, a wear all day piece of eyewear needs to weigh this amount, and that's one aspect of what these glasses need to do. They need to not put out more than X amount of heat onto the face in a certain amount of time. Otherwise, they're going to be too hot and get uncomfortable. There's that list goes on and on of all these things these AR headsets need to have in order to access tens of millions of people. And I think just Apple and Facebook drew the line at different spots of where they thought was acceptable and exactly how they wanted to profit from the hardware they're actually selling. So because Facebook doesn't necessarily need to get a profit on hardware, they want to get as many people as they can into the headsets. They want to be out there early with this technology, whereas Apple could have drew the line on that checklist at just, we want color cameras. We think if you put out a headset without color cameras, you're taking a step backward, and maybe that was where they drew the line. But maybe there's a combo of maybe 2 or 3 of those that they're just like that. These are the things we think are necessary to make this a good experience. And the other one I was thinking about is the Space Sense technology that's been leaked, where you'll look around and be able to be alerted when someone walks into your space. Being able to sit down on your couch and having your headset recognize that it's a couch. Like, that shouldn't have to be a manual thing you go and do every time. Your headset should know where your seats are, and they should know if they're clear of animals, things, or people. And I can easily imagine an executive looking at a headset without those features and going, we've got to get that ready.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that Basti 564, we'll talk about this later when we talk about the Quest Pro leaks, but just as you say that is actually one of the features Basti 564 found references to in the Oculus firmware. It could be part of Quest Pro, that ability to detect furniture without having to manually mark it out. So it'll be really interesting to see if that happens. Just to circle back on the Microsoft thing, I don't question that Microsoft can make good consumer hardware. We've seen them do that with Surface, but shipping a consumer product on a consumer platform is a lot more than the hardware. And we haven't seen Microsoft build new software that appeals to consumers in when was the last time they have? Pretty much all of Microsoft's consumer efforts have failed, and we've seen the company just pivot further and further into enterprise and make more money than a lot of their competitors. Microsoft briefly became $1 trillion company, and almost all of their growth is in enterprise. So I think that's where they'll continue to focus.
When you look at what Apple, and I guess in this sense, in a metaverse sense, Facebook, they're trying to create a confidence and a reliance from their customer base on the ecosystem. It's a reliance on the ecosystem. It's almost like a loyalty type of thing. And so many people use Facebook stuff that when they hear Facebook name on a piece of hardware, Facebook phone, except for that, there's an opportunity for Apple to kind of wait and have that immediate confidence, that buy-in from their fan base. Microsoft has never really gotten that, I don't think. Like, I've never felt like, oh, it's a Microsoft product, so I'm going to go buy it. Hey, look at my Surface tablet. No, I'm not doing that. I maybe there are people out there, but I think it's a smaller base. So Microsoft found their customer base in enterprise, in the military, in these big contracts. That's where they get the confidence.
All right, so let me just throw this out there that, like, yeah, Microsoft has been sitting out the VR race so far, right? I mean, they did mixed reality and they kind of walked away from it and they let Steam sort of have its day. But OpenXR is supported there. They're completely OpenXR across the board, and they can have a lot of weight if in implementing OpenXR in a headset. I think what Quest proves to these makers is that you got to have standalone and then build from there. And I'm curious how many years it's going to take Sony and Microsoft to get there. So, like, I mean, PSVR 2, we know it's a wired experience and it's not going to be there yet. But Microsoft, if they could do a standalone that connected to an Xbox for your Xbox Games Pass and for whatever VR things can actually run on an Xbox, a new generation Xbox, and then you use the frame interpolation, stuff. You do some of that to get to the frame rate you want on an Xbox standalone, and you've got a Quest plus Xbox Games Pass. And that's actually a pretty compelling package if you go back full circle with what we were talking about at the top of this hour with Virtual Desktop getting 120 hertz support for flat screen games. If you've got a headset from Microsoft that will let you watch a game on your ceiling and play a game on your ceiling on a 100-inch screen, and it's part of your Xbox Games Pass subscription, I mean, that's a pretty darn compelling thing compared to what Quest offers.
I think it's interesting that you bring up the requirement from standalone, because the last report we saw about Apple's headset just before this new report suggesting that it's entering production and launching next year was that it will require a iPhone, iPad, or a Mac to use. And beforehand, all of the reporting had indicated that Apple's headset would be a standalone like Quest, and some even suggested it would have the M1 chip from the new MacBooks. Although I was always skeptical of that claim, because it seems that the battery life on something like that, or the thermals, would be pretty much impossible to get into a lightweight headset. But we've seen the information report just this month that it will require one of those other Apple devices. Now, there was no information, there was no detail on exactly what require means, on exactly how this would work, but the report suggested that the headset would have a processor that's actually weaker than what's found in an iPhone, but has a special section on it for more effectively decoding wireless video streams. So it looks like it's possible that either the rumors until now have been slightly wrong about Apple's headset, or that Apple has perhaps changed its headset to work more like Virtual Desktop and Oculus AirLink, but with specialized hardware, than actually a standalone like Quest 2 in standalone mode. Now, Apple can obviously do that because it has a large volume of existing iPhone, iPad, and Mac devices out there. It has full control of the hardware and the software on those. But I have to say, I'm very interested to see exactly how that will materialize and whether that will impact the user experience at all.
It changes that product, the Apple headset, from being a standalone, as we were talking, from a product itself to becoming basically an accessory. And I don't want an accessory headset. I want, like, okay, let's be real here. PSVR is an accessory. It does nothing without a PlayStation. So, but that's okay because it knows what it's supposed to be. It knows what it's trying to be. It's not trying to be anything else. But to make this Apple headset be an accessory, I think is going to be a bad idea. That's just my opinion. But oh man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
and
is
here, MX Morningstar, a $2,000 accessory isn't going to fly. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what I'm
this
saying.
is the debate. Yeah, Heaney and I had sort of like a lot of back and forth on that report because the wording seemed vague enough, at least to me, that it left the door open to something like the connection between a Quest and an iPhone as being the same kind of connection that's required between this headset and an iPhone. So like being able to offload your captures if you took photos with the thing, or to sort of hand off calls, uh,
Why would it be
which
about?
is what is
Why would it?
happening with the Ray-Bans. Sorry, go ahead.
I just got to say, I definitely disagree with that. The report was, I mean, the report's claim was very clear that it said it's going to have a weaker processor than an iPhone and advanced wireless compression technologies. That wouldn't be for something like sharing screenshots. The implication there is very clear that they're saying that this is going to be something that streams the content directly from the device. But to me, that makes sense because how else is this thing going to be 100 to 300 grams, even with an advanced magnesium alloy? How are they going to put in a chip and a cooling to actually run high experiences for hours in something that weighs that little? Maybe they can do it, and maybe Apple is great at actually building that kind of product. But if you look at all these reports together, it does seem to suggest that Apple is going to offload to their other devices. Though maybe there is a standalone mode, maybe the more simple media applications like playing a virtual YouTube screen in front of you can be done on the headset. But it's hard to imagine how a headset like that is going to run multi-hour high fidelity experiences if the reports claim about the chip is true.
Well, just to kind of wrap things up a bit here, the easy way for them to be able to do this is to wait another 5 years and have all new technology come out in order for them to be able to do all these fun things that they're claiming to do. And as a little suffix to all of this, I spent the better part of 6 months staring at a very squared off Apple Watch that looked just like the iPhone 12 in its design, and being told by the whole internet that this is what to expect from the new Apple Watch. And then when they did announce the new Apple Watch, none of that was right. So all of these rumors have to be taken with a huge, monstrous chunk of salt. So I'm just going to leave that right there. Somebody is saying that my glasses are flickering. Is that are they flickering to you guys as well?
To me, yeah.
Yeah.
They look solid to me, but
they just
I've been
disappear
looking at
sometimes
Heaney
and
a
they
lot.
come back.
Oh, well, that's because they're so lightweight. Special magnesium alloy. Anyway, okay, let's move on because I saw a couple people were excited to hear about this, so let's talk about it. Redesigned DecaGear controllers. DecaGear just revealed redesigned controllers for its upcoming PC VR headset. I am actually kind of excited because that is an odd shape, size, design. Ian,
I want to see them up on the screen. We're not able to
we're
actually
going to
show
try
them on
to.
Yeah, these were unusual. Like, I mean, we tried those ones. Remember those ones we tried? I can't remember what they were called right now. When we were at CES.
Yeah,
but
what
they were like
those?
the
You liked
oddest shape
those.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like and they responded to your touch, so they could do some finger tracking.
Mhm.
You gotta hold these things in your hand. Like I remember reading about the DualSense's triggers, and nothing could compare to actually playing through that Astrobot game on the PS 5 with the trigger sort of pushing back at you in different ways depending on the environment of the game.
Yeah.
And I can't. There's no way to kind of grasp the how different it is just by reading or looking at an image.
So we can't actually put the image up. We're working on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate the shape with my hands using hand tracking of the new what are they? DecaGear Move controllers. I forget but if you basically just put your hands together like this, and let me move over here so that way there. So they kind of have these like dendrils that kind of stick out. There you go, like that. And then for those of you on the podcast audio only, I apologize for you not being able to see this ridiculous thing that I'm doing. It's like some sort of like metaverse gang sign here. Yeah. Oh, well, no. Okay. We have a picture up, but so their old design looked like basically that the index controllers, yeah, go
The
ahead.
picture is it just to let you know the picture's not showing up on the screen to the viewers. That's what I was
Okay.
saying. So
Okay. All right. So the old controllers look like the index controllers and the touch controllers had a baby together, basically. The old design, and now the new one looks like that kind of whole like this thing here. My thumb sticking out. I don't know. Ian, the ones that we tried at CES or whatever that was.
ET, I think is what it was called.
ET?
Like ETEE, maybe something like that.
ET? Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know how to say.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry.
Yeah, what is it? Onikazi. Did I inadvertently trigger multiple takedown flags? Oh well, we'll find out later if this is naughty. Ian, you're the only one I think on the team that actually has the index. Is that correct with the controllers?
Oh yeah, well I think someone else who was previously with us and has moved on had another pair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got the index controllers.
So talk to me about the novelty or the practical application of the touch and the finger movement, other than you're not allowed to reference Half-Life Alyx. Then go ahead.
Is it cheating to talk about Aperture Hand Lab?
Yes,
then?
that's absolutely cheating. Yes.
Oh man, that's the biggest thing I can come up with is like there's that, and that's the only experience I can think of. Alyx and the other one, Aperture Hand Lab, that really took incredible advantage of being able to like crush cans, and even then you don't even do it on your run through naturally. You're too thinking about trying to survive and get through the map.
Now I
to actually take advantage of the things you could actually do with crushing your fingers.
I listened to a large amount of people talk about how those controllers are going to be the savior of VR. I'm just curious how many other developers, and maybe there are some, I'm not saying that there aren't, but where are the other applications, games, experiences that take advantage of that? Or is it a one-trick pony?
I think you nailed it. Where you've got the whole breadth of the Oculus library. Just when people complain about Quest killing PC VR, or when they make that accusation that I'm not making here, I think it's kind of like it's a very stupid one that we've pointed out in the past. Just how it's growing PC VR in its own way. When we talked about this previously with the iPhone, I did want to go full circle with this, but like. The Quest turned the PC into an accessory for VR versus previous to that with the Rift and all the other headsets of that generation. The headset was an accessory to the PC. Well, the phone is an accessory to your Quest as well. And standalone is going to be the path forward. And all these headsets are making use of the devices around them in various ways and turning them into accessories. People are asking about the cost, and I don't remember what the cost was here.
$450 for the full kit, including the controllers, is DecaGear's announced price. But we don't know if it's going to hit that, but that's what they claim. They claim $450.
Yeah, I'm. Do you think? I don't know. We have to try these things out. Yeah, that's that's it.
Yeah, no,
It's so
there's
important that we have that on all these headsets because there's just so many years of hardware from small players launching and just not being able to compete at this level because there is so little hand controlled content over on PC and uh I'm it's like I don't know until there's a chicken and the egg problem there with hand controllers where there needs to be more support across platforms for hand input. Uh, but the only way to really do it on a um, consumer level is with those index controllers or with the Quest hand tracking. And right now, OpenXR is held up on hand tracking, right? So it's
yeah.
it's going to take time for us to see more hand tracking things work across both platforms, and it's a bummer that we don't have it on PC yet.
So you mentioned something I want to touch on because I think it's important, and this is a conversation that, having been in the VR industry since the DK1 days and even before then, uh, anytime you have hardware that does X, it doesn't matter whether it's a hand controller or a hip controller or feet controller or whatever, hardware that provides unique experience X can be amazing. It can be cheap. It can be robust, and it can be profound and widely available. But if there aren't developers who are willing to adopt that hardware and make it available in their game experience app, whatever, it's dead in the water. I mean, look at all the pieces of hardware that, Ian, between you and I and Heaney, I don't know if you've been able to have a chance to try out some of the weird, unique hardware that we've seen at all these expos and shows. There's plenty of stuff that I have tried, and I'm like, wow, if this gets adopted, this would be pretty cool. And it didn't, and it disappears off into the ether, into the metaverse graveyard. There, I'm metaverse clipboard and metaverse graveyard. Those are two things that we've coined on this show today. I don't know, Heaney, what do you think about that?
I know I was just going to completely agree with what you said there. It really is about developer support, but what drives developer support is, quite frankly, the number of people who have it. If 5% of your audience have the greatest VR controller ever, it really doesn't matter if you can't justify putting development time and cost into it. So, people sometimes talk about lower cost hardware in a negative way. And of course, there are negatives to lower cost hardware, and that corners have to be cut to get it to that cost. But in an industry that's so small and needs to grow, the fundamental fact about low cost hardware is that it means that many more people are going to adopt that hardware. And what I would like to see Valve do in their next index controller or whatever their next project happens to be is start to focus not just on what is the best they could do, because we know they can produce this amazing, incredible hardware, but to seriously start to think about cost. Because if you look at the index controllers, for example, they're $280. That's a little bit shy of an entire Quest 2 with controllers. I would like to see Valve do something that's almost as good as the best they can do, but cut down a little bit so that people can afford it and it can get it out to enough people that developers can actually justify building for it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I mean, hardware wise, I do not. Do we know if Deca Gear is going to be like? Is it going to be like a Kickstarter thing, like Links? I mean, there's another one that's out there, kind of in the ether, waiting to see. Do we know? Is it just
Yeah,
going to be available one day?
well, it's a pre-order. The $450 is the pre-order price, and as with Lynx, where they've given their price, which was $499, they haven't. Neither company has actually explicitly given a price for what it will be after pre-order. And just to be clear, neither company has confirmed that the price will go up, but each company has very specifically said pre-order price. And we'll need to see over time whether they can sustainably have a healthy business off selling at that kind of price. Because if DecaGear can come in at $450, that's a really, really appealing price point for a headset that has HB Reverb G2 resolution and face tracking and these kind of index-like controllers. So, that is an example of a company taking these ideas that Valve's had and bringing them down to lower cost. But we'll have to see if they can sustain that price point over time.
Yeah, I just hope that, adding the finger controls and all that, that whatever value that added or cost that added to the hardware, if they had come out at $399 versus $450, I don't know. It's with all this finger tracking talk, it's going to be a bloody fight, bloody knuckles, right? Not knuckles, not knuckles fight. Okay. Anyway,
I,
so
I've
speaking of
I've
ridiculous,
I've
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, okay. I was
Yeah,
just gonna say I was using the Kiwi Design grips on my touch controllers recently, and it's
Hmm.
nice to have the controllers that you can release. Just gonna leave that note there that like when you've got that
Yeah,
strap there to your hand and being able to let the
yeah,
controllers go from time to
yeah,
time, it's
yeah.
nice.
So it's a $20 solution, not a $200 solution, though, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
So,
completely agree.
hey, what? Yeah, go ahead.
Uh,
Yeah.
I was just going to say that is, before Index released, a lot of the talk was around the finger sensing, but as we've just discussed, that didn't really turn out too much. But what did turn out to be really innovative and what everyone, is starting to copy and Valve brought out first is that throwing. And it really does change the game for throwing virtual objects when you can actually just let go of the controller. So that's something, I think we've Valve for in the past and will continue to. That throwing on an Index controller is just beyond any other VR controller.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Oh boy. All right. Well, this last piece of news that we have for you today, it came to me in a dream. It did. I had this weird dream last night that all these amazing new leaks were coming out of Oculus Quest Pro information. And okay, so here's the news. Did the Oculus Quest Pro specs leak online? Apparent images of Quest Pro's controllers and alleged specs, I'm doing air quotes for you podcast people, for the headset were leaked online. They suggest a truly high-end product design to push the boundaries of VR and mixed reality. Ian, I'm just going to go ahead and say, I think some of this might be hogwash.
Yeah. So let's let Heaney walk us down the path of how this came out because yeah, Heaney and I went back and forth in this, and while he's going off, I'm gonna get an image to throw up on to Stevie the TV while
You
he's
can't.
You
The
can't.
images
Stevie
won't
has.
cast.
Oh, it's
You can cast
broken. All right,
videos
well, it's
today, but not images.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Sorry, it's the Charlie meme. It's the Charlie doing the crazy crazy hands, putting all the things together. From It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I wanted to throw that up on the TV.
Oh, right, yeah. I was trying to figure out which
Heaney,
Charlie you were talking about. Charlie in the
Charlie
Chocolate
from
Factory,
yeah.
Charlie Gordon. I mean, yeah.
No, Charlie worked Charlie.
Yeah. So, Heaney, walk us through this web of fun rumor mill components.
All right. So for the past few months, we've started to see some evidence that Facebook is working on a new VR headset to the point where references to it are present in the public Oculus firmware. So we put up an article last week, Quest Pro, Everything We Know, and that included the fact that the YouTuber Basti564 has found a direct reference to the exact phrase Quest Pro, and another firmware sleuth found references to face and eye tracking calibration steps, suggesting that whatever this new headset is could have face and eye tracking.
Now, Heaney, why do we trust these? Like you've verified these things in the past, have you not?
Yeah, and this time I did as well. Each time when these people, it's one of those things that it's hard to find, but once you know the exact string that they found, you can decompile the firmware yourself and confirm, the PNP problem. You can figure it out in the first place. But yeah, so this isn't, to be clear, these things are present in the Oculus firmware. This isn't somebody claiming this. We have verified that the Quest Pro string and face and eye tracking calibration is present in the Oculus firmware. Now, this week, this is where things start to get really, really weird. So a Reddit user by the name of Samulia posted low resolution renders of what they called Oculus C-Cliff controllers. Now, this codename C-Cliff has actually been present in the Oculus firmware since mid-2020. And all indications seem to point to Seacliff being the code name for whatever this next headset is. The fact that there are strings referencing Quest Pro would suggest that it. Sorry, someone says.
Why does Seacliff point to Pro? Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
Well, okay, so I just want to throw that out there for those of
John-
you who have not been privy to the code names of different Oculus headsets throughout the past. Seacliff is actually a spot in California. It's a bay, just like what's the other one? Antica is also referenced, and I don't want to jump the gun here, but these are all locations in California. So in the past, we've had things like Santa Cruz and Monterey, and these are all, look at them on a map in California. It's like they're going up the coast. Just wanted to throw that out there. So the fact that these names are legit places in California kind of lend to its validity. I don't know. I guess that's why I said that.
Yeah, most previous Oculus hardware have been given a code name that references a place along the coast of California. So as you say, Kyle, we've seen those code names as well as Crystal Cove and Crescent Bay, going as far back as 2014. We've seen Half Moon Bay, we've seen Del Mar, we've seen all of these code names. But yeah, Seacliff is referenced as the next hardware that comes after Quest 2. So that's been there since 2020. Anyway, so as I was saying, on Wednesday, this Reddit user posted these low-resolution renders of Oculus Seacliff controllers. And they show controllers that look very similar to the Oculus Touch controllers for Quest 2, except instead of that tracking ring on the top, there is no tracking ring, but instead you can see 3 cameras on the outside, 2 on the front and 1 on the top of the controller. Now that suggests that this controller is tracking itself using these cameras for inside-out tracking in the same way that the headset tracks itself with cameras. So we didn't actually immediately report on this because just under this render was an Oculus employee on Reddit who said, just FYI that we do a lot of internal prototyping before we release final products. I have another quite different prototype. So that's the first grain of salt you need to add to this. But the really weird part was that the day before, Samulia posted a comment where he said he had a realistic and detailed dream about the exact display type and the exact models of camera sensors being used in the Seacliff standalone headset. So he claimed that the display is a dual cell LCD from BOE, which has the same resolution as Quest 2, but an advanced backlight with pixel level control. And how this is supposed to work based on reading about BOE, this display company's technology dual cell, is that you have just one layer for color like in a normal LCD, but behind it another layer that can turn off and on pixels to reveal the backlight. So it's kind of a cheap way to get the same contrast levels of OLED, or at least similar depending on how the technology works. So their claim about which headsets are on the exterior of this sensor of this headset is they claim in the center you have a 4K 120 frame per second color camera for color pass-through and presumably mixed reality. And on the sides, you have a 1K near infrared camera with laser constellation projection. So 3 cameras on the outside of the headset, not 4 like the current Quest 2 and Quest 2. And the reason that the current Quest and Quest 2 has 4 in the first place is to get a really wide tracking range from the controllers. But remember, this person's claim, and we'll talk about later how this is likely much more than just a claim, is that the controllers are tracking themselves. So if they don't need that, then the headset itself can focus on what cameras are best for tracking its position and for hand tracking and for mixed reality. So as well as these 3 exterior sensors, Samulia claimed that there are 4 sensors inside the headset. 2 are used to track your eye and upper face, and 2 below pointing towards your chin to track the bottom of your face and your lip movement. And so remember, we'd seen these references to face and eye tracking calibration. And just under this, that same that same Oculus employee on Reddit that claimed to have a very different prototype commented again to caution, aspirations and final products are sometimes different things. So all of this is just some crazy guy having a dream, you may think at first. However, yesterday, Basti564, who is known for finding upcoming features in the Oculus firmware on many occasions, we've written multiple articles on his findings. Some of them have come true, and some of them could be future features. Posted a video backing up Simulia's claims with firmware findings, finding that the same sensor configuration and down to the exact same models of camera. Because remember, Simulia's comment wasn't just saying it will have these specs. He was posting the exact model of each sensor. I'm nearly finished. Backed up to the same Seacliff codename. Now, this suggests that either Simulia had insider knowledge or he's using the same firmware decompiling methodology as Basti, but without revealing it. Basti also found that Seacliff has 2 cooling fans, which is up from 1 in Quest 2. And you have to remember, Quest 2's primary CPU cores are actually underclocked. So if Quest Pro has 2 cooling fans, it's possible that Facebook could be getting high even if they are using the same processor. So yeah, that's basically the story. There's also another YouTuber who found similar references and found different display technologies, but in general, it's looking like either this Reddit guy was using the same method as Basti to decompile the Oculus firmware, or he had insider knowledge. But the kind of question that would maybe take away from the possibility that it's just using decompiling is the fact that those screenshots were showing specific pictures of these controllers. So that seemed to have come from a Facebook workplace chat based on the UI. So it looks like something is happening here. Whether this is Quest Pro or a real product, we don't know. But clearly there is some kind of product here referenced on multiple firmware.
I'm just confused how the firmware jumps to screenshots of things. Like, how does it go from
inside the firmware? There are icon files that show this exact same controller in the same way that you may see an icon in the Oculus app, or when you're looking at your battery on your controller, you see an icon that's shaped like the touch controller with the ring. On this one, there's an icon that is quite detailed, showing this exact controller with these cameras, and that's the same.
So
yeah,
you're telling me he's sitting out there, or Basti, I don't know, he or she is sitting out there and going through their file, and they find this little itty bitty JPEG icon file, blow it up to full size, and see there's like a little mark on the side of it.
Yeah, no, 3 that shows this 3 cameras. Maybe I didn't mention the fact that. Let me just look back here. Did I forget to mention the fact that there was also a post on the? Yeah, sorry, I understand now. I forgot to mention separately. There was a post on the image sharing website Imgur showing screenshots of a video call where someone was holding these controllers in their hand, and they look identical to these icon files and the render that was posted by Simulia. Because you remember the first post of all of this that was actually noticed by people was a render of these controllers. So we have a render of them, a screenshot of someone holding them up in a video call, and an icon file within the firmware, and all 3 look identical. That's how we kind of know that this controller is clearly something. Whether it's a real product that's going to ship, we don't know, but it's clearly a prototype that exists to the point where it is in the public Oculus firmware.
That right there, I think, is the true statement that we know to be true, that this is something, that it does exist somewhere in some form, showing that this technology is being used in this way. But EVTs have been floating around. I've got a pair of Oculus controllers that don't look like anything that were ever sold. Okay. Prototypes go out there, engineering stuff. But the core to this, the truth, the movie inside the book, so to speak, is that yes, they're using tracking technology on their newest controllers, whether it's for the Pro or some other version of the headset that's coming down the way. We know that they're putting cameras in controllers. We have enough proof to know that they're at least exploring that option.
Well,
Whether or not this is, did we ever figure out which video chat app
yeah,
that was?
like I said, it's Facebook Workplace, which is Facebook's Slack and Microsoft Teams competitor. So either the person who was holding up these controllers in the screenshot was a Facebook employee, or it was a company, a developer, a VR developer, for example, that is using Facebook Workplace as their remote work solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
because whether
yeah,
this is a leak intentionally or unintentionally, it had to have come from somebody either that has access to this hardware. Whether or not it's the final product, I wouldn't be so certain of that. But the fact that somebody is out there showing, I mean, I've seen things. You see things sometimes,
It's
and you don't talk about it, but you see things. Who's going to get in trouble? Who's going to be on the Facebook naughty list because this guy? I want to know who it is that's getting. I mean, obviously, you can't track a anonymous
well,
Reddit person, or can you?
the room in the screenshot is pretty distinct. So I'm sure whoever at Facebook is in charge of trying to stop leaks is aware of who it was. I don't think, I think as long as they had ever, I don't imagine there are many of these prototype controllers that are out there. And if there aren't many that are being used by people who have Facebook Workplace. I think most developers would be using Slack or Microsoft Teams or something like that. Facebook Workplace is not exactly the most popular amongst those solutions. So I'm sure they'll be able to trace this. But there are possibilities. This could have been. We don't know when this screenshot was taken. It could have been a year ago and only just emerged now. But what we do know is that the controllers in it look exactly like the render that was posted anonymously to Reddit before these screenshots came out, and the icon file that was found by Basti. And Basti says that these are actually referenced in the firmware as C-Cliff controllers. So, that we've got the C-Cliff
so
headset with all these specs and the C-Cliff controllers.
so Heaney, I mean, can we just jump to talking about what this means for price? Like, I want to ask two questions about. Do you think? Do you remember when the Quest 2 launched and the batteries last forever, and then I want to say there was an update and they last even longer. There was some kind of an improvement to the battery life beyond even what they launched with, as I recall.
It was giving Quest 1 the same battery life technology. It extended the battery life of Quest 1's controllers using the Quest 2 controller tech.
That's
So
interesting.
my question
Yeah.
is: are those gains, which I think are attributable to machine learning progress, um, are those gains what could make it feasible for you to put multiple camera sensors on a controller itself?
So I think we can both remember on Slack, you were actually the first person to suggest that maybe Quest Pro's controllers uh, would track themselves inside out from their own cameras. And I think obviously you must have seen it in a dream or something, because my immediate reaction was that's not going to happen, simply because the battery life of something like that would be hard to imagine to be long, because it's something that has to process these 3 cameras on board and kind of track its own position and report that back. It's a lot more effort than just flashing an LED pattern. But we've seen products innovate like this before. Machine learning is making some pretty huge advances in the power efficiency of computer vision. We're seeing smaller and smaller devices that are capable of this. Even the Oculus Quest itself, people didn't really think it was possible to do in a device of that size. And, as I've noted in our article, if these C-Cliff controllers are real and they do ship, they would be the smallest device to have self-contained ultra high precision positional tracking. So it would be a step forward. It would be something that people haven't been expected, but I'm still skeptical that these things will have
It's
any more than a few hours of battery life.
if they ditch the tracking ring, like it also makes those things puck competitors. Like you could really use them in a variety of ways beyond just controllers. Attach them to lots of different things. That tracking ring is kind of yes, you can attach things to it, but it's kind of a pain for
How
attaching it to things.
disappointed is everybody going to be when you find out that those cameras are just so that way you can do Zoom calls while you're in VR? What are you going to do?
No, someone in our comments did bring up the potential that these cameras could feed full body tracking data back to the headset theoretically. Maybe that's how they go outside in somehow.
Or you put your thumb over top of the camera and then it gets a copy of your thumbprint that can be used for, Facebook being able to store your thumbprints. Come on, Ian, put your tinfoil hat on and follow me down this rabbit hole.
You're all right. I'm not going to let you go. So earlier you're like, you sometimes see things, you don't talk about them. It sounded like you were talking about aliens, and I got to ask you about aliens. I don't know. It was just the way you said it. It sounded like you're talking about aliens.
You're going to have to follow that podcast that I do secretly that nobody knows about. Now people are going to be out there searching for a podcast that.
I'll join the alien podcast.
Well, yeah. All right.
No.
Yeah,
cool.
Oh, wait. Let's see. Can we watch our viewer numbers? Like, we can watch them live on our TV across the room. If we start talking about aliens and those numbers start skyrocketing, what do we do?
Nope. We're losing people, Ian.
No.
They don't want to hear about aliens.
We're losing people. All right. No aliens. All right. Fine.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Okay. So, on a scale of 0 to 100%.
We didn't talk about price. What does this mean for price? Yeah.
I think this thing is going to be more expensive than a lot of people are predicting. I've seen predictions across Reddit and Twitter of something like they think the Quest 2 will be dropped down $50 and the Quest Pro will come in at $350. I think if you're looking, if the suggestions of this leaker that are backed up by the firmware findings represent what this actual product will be, and those are a lot of ifs, we need to put that on very clear that those are a lot of ifs. But if so, I think we're looking at something that's going to be north of $600, potentially even coming around to $1,000. And I think it's very notable that the firmware leak says Quest Pro. And earlier this year, Andrew Bosworth, who we were talking about earlier, Facebook's future CTO, the head of their AR VR efforts, specifically used the word Quest Pro. He didn't say Quest 2 Pro, and this leak doesn't say Quest 2 Pro, Quest Pro. If this is just something that is kind of a higher-end model of Quest 2, why wouldn't it be called Quest 2 Pro? And I think the answer is because this is going to be a product that launches at a completely different tier, and all of the features of this may not even make it into a future Quest 3. I think this is Facebook's showcase and development kit for a social VR product that has face and eye tracking and the comfort to actually be in a virtual meeting in something like workrooms for multiple hours with your facial expression and eyes brought across without having to worry about keeping it cheap and cheerful for the mass market. And so that's what that screams to me, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'm going to let you go first, Ian.
All right. Well, I guess I'm just going to add to this that, like, the war room at Facebook and Apple has to be really, really, really interesting with this chip shortage globally. Like, if you're competing as Facebook for certain optical chips and they're the same ones that Apple needs, Apple's going to get them because they're going to place a larger order than Facebook is probably. But these companies, like, there's people making deals at Facebook and Apple and trying to secure partnerships that are going to be big things in 5 or 10 years. And so there's just got to be such a mad dash to lock down supply chain, get these products ready. And the missing piece here that Heaney and I have been going back and forth for a long time over what the next products out of Facebook look like. And Quest Pro, when he started talking about the price here being up to $1,000, that starts making the picture a little clearer where Facebook could actually come out and say, this early, these are some of the things we're planning for the Quest Pro. and it's going to be a different class of VR experience. Your Quest 2 is still going to be on the market at $300 for potentially years at this point. But, we're working on something more, and we're, handing them out to devs next year. That's the same thing they've done in the past. They came out when they actually announced Quest, as I recall. They promised dev kits the following year is what they did for that, right, Heaney?
Yeah.
So I think if you come out and make it clear that this is Quest 2 is still the most accessible, least expensive way to get into VR, and this is going to be a $1,000 or $600 headset, they don't risk losing people who are going out and buying Quest 2s, and they're reassuring people that Quest 2s are still going to be sold new for X amount of years.
Okay. I have a question for the two of you really quickly before I go on another rant. First of all, hi, Andrew King. Hi. How you doing? Glad that you enjoyed our Facebook story glasses episode last week as much as Heaney probably did. Okay, Ian. And obviously Heaney too. What does that word is that short for professional, or is that short
Yeah.
for prosumer? What is it short
It's
for?
evolved. I think it means pro, right? I mean,
It
like,
just means pro. It just means
yeah,
in addition to the normal. It's just the
yeah,
next
like,
version up.
I mean, I think the idea is that's the marker here. If their first good software product is what TechCrunch called, I think it's what TechCrunch called Workrooms. If they're looking for a product that lets you go into Workrooms for longer, that's what warrants the pro label. Now, I think they're going to throw a lot of other things at this, but making sure that your time spent actually doing work in VR is more enjoyable, would be why you would apply that name. Lengthen the average time you spend in that headset. So if you're going to go spend $1,000 or $600, whatever they land on, what you've got to get out of that is the maximum amount of time, like, that they can comfortably put you in VR. That's how Valve did it with the Index in my mind. Like, Valve, there's still a lot of weight on your head. There's still the cable, which is kind of a pain, kind of always reminding you that you're in VR. But the Index is so comfortable that you would use it for a little bit longer. I hope that they really do that with the Pro, and I think that's what they would probably go for with that Pro name. Now that said, is this the device to go buy if you want to go play Space Pirate Arena out in a broad daylight? Maybe that's what'll happen.
Yeah,
If the tracking is better.
when I was, this is so silly, and I apologize for this silly anecdote, but when I was in high school, I worked at a grocery store, and I remember when there was like Mr. Clean, and then Advanced Mr. Clean came out, and they were both on the shelf, and I thought, well, why do you still sell regular Mr. Clean? Who is going to buy regular Mr. Clean if for another 50 cents you can get Advanced Mr. Clean? Yet both products sold. There was a 50-cent difference. Now, obviously, we're talking about technology here. There's going to be well more than 50 cents in difference. But when the Pro comes out, who's going to go buy and I guess I own a PS4 Pro. I bought that because I had the extra money to spend to get the better performance for PSVR. But people are still buying the other one because it has now become the budget brand, the budget model. I don't know. Heaney, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think people who want to just play VR games are going to buy Quest 2 for $300 or whatever happens to its pricing. And people who don't care about face and eye tracking, if face and eye tracking, as suggested in these leaks, if they are what is in the product, only really matter to people who are using this for virtual meetings and for well, obviously, if it was the same price, people would get it. But are you going to pay hundreds of dollars extra just for these extra sensors? if you're not in virtual meetings, if you just want to play Beat Saber or Population 1 or Onward, does it really matter if it can track your face for all this extra money? And if you can, with these with these controllers, put them behind your back, does it justify that cost? It is the pricing and the kind of cost of these sensors that makes that differentiation. And Carmack himself was kind of skeptical of the idea of a Pro earlier in the year, and I think his comments and his exact phrasing are actually quite interesting. He said, "I'm happy to have a Pro model that goes off and explores every sensor in the kitchen sink, but I think you'll only have 1/10 of the users." And I also think that's maybe why Facebook could launch a Pro next year if they do plan to. Again, all we know about the Pro is that it won't launch this year. Andrew Bosworth said earlier in the year, he said it's not going to happen this year. So if they do want to launch it next year amid the current supply chain crisis, the fact that there may be only a few 100,000 people buying something like this, or maybe even less, depending on the price, means that they can still launch this product without having to worry about that because the scale is so low that they can readily get the components for it.
What this new product does is it establishes another user tier. It establishes the fact that if you just want normal VR, regular everyday VR, you go spend $300, or if they lower the price $259, whatever, on the regular. But if you want the Pro, and I'll tell you what I think Facebook should do is I think that they should actually stop subsidizing the hardware for this Pro model and actually charge what it's worth, charge what it costs.
Subsidizing. So selling at cost and subsidizing below cost, and then actually taking a profit off of the hardware are like dramatically different things depending how you cut slice the money up. Like Facebook,
but think of the value of having those. Having the value of having those products out in the ecosystem, even if it's only 100,000 people, that's 100,000 people with all of that sensor input in teaching them what, send it feedback back to make the product better. I think that they should sell it at cost. And if that ends up being $699, then so be it.
All right. So this is where it starts getting really interesting, where if you take Heaney's sort of deduction here and piecing everything together as like even close to what might happen, if it's going to be somewhere between 600 and 1,000, let's say, what does that mean for the bundling of controllers? If the controllers themselves are more costly to make, do they get sold by default in a package? When Facebook announces Quest Pro, do they sell it with the controllers at first, and then do they later sell an option that has no controllers, or do they sell at the outset no controllers and controllers? Is the market ready for that kind of confusion over there being like a controllerless version and a controller version? And if these controllers are better, what are the chances they work with the Quest 2?
So what's interesting in the leaks is that Samulia, the original Redditor who posted these specs that were then found in the firmware, said that the side sensors. So just to remember, there are apparently 3 sensors on this headset's exterior: a high resolution color camera in the middle, and then on the sides you have these near infrared cameras, but with laser pattern projectors. And Samulia claimed that these laser pattern projectors are able to be used for hand tracking in the similar way that iPhone's Face ID projects a pattern on your face for the camera to sense depth. They think that might be used for hand tracking. And the other possibility is that it's used to assist these controllers tracking. So rather than the controllers having to do perfect simultaneous location and mapping in the way that a headset does, because they're moving so quickly, what may happen, and this is kind of just speculating based on these leaks, is that the headset on each side projects out a specific pattern, notes where that pattern falls, then the controllers track themselves relative to those laser patterns, transmit their position back to the headset, and from that relative position, the headset can figure out where the controllers are. If that's the case, these controllers wouldn't be able to work with Quest 2. But if that is the case, the hand tracking should also be much higher quality. So it's very possible that Facebook could sell this headset without the controllers, because I don't think it's a matter of market confusion that prevents it from happening. I think it's the quality of hand tracking. We're using hand tracking here now, and as you can see, if we kind of occlude the hands, one of them disappears, and I can, by putting it at the right angle, make them both disappear. If I move it very quickly or try to mesh my hands together, it's a lot better than it used to be, and it's very, very impressive compared to what it used to be. But if I'm trying, I can still quite easily break it. And if I was trying to do some sort of intricate interaction or point at something in the right way, or maybe pick up some virtual objects in HandLab, it would be very obvious that this is not up to par to controllers. So if Facebook can deliver a Quest Pro that uses this expensive hardware to deliver good hand tracking, not only can that be a better dev kit for future hand tracking applications, but it does mean that they could offer it to businesses without controllers, because I think one of the
Did you turn him off? Did you hit the eject
I didn't turn
button
him
there,
off.
Ian?
I thought my battery died. That's a hell of a way to
No.
find out your.
I lost track.
Oh wait, he's back. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought.
Funny enough,
I thought
think
my
I must
world
have...
died. I was waiting for my world to power down, the darkness to come, and
you know what it
started
was?
speaking to me, Kyle.
It was aliens. It was aliens. The aliens came down, Heaney, and got you. It's aliens.
I think I occluded the cameras so much with my hand tracking test that the tracking actually knocked out. So yeah, but all I was going to say was that we haven't talked yet about the fact that you can argue about the semantics of Pro, but one of the meanings for Pro could be the fact that this thing is pitched towards enterprise and the same kind of companies that would buy a HoloLens for certain applications or some other mixed reality. Because remember, if that claim about the 4K color sensor in the front, the 4K color camera in front is true, and that was by both that leaker and found in the firmware, this thing's going to be able to do mixed reality. So, we haven't even talked about that and what's possible there. So it'll be interesting to see what this product really is.
Yeah, and enterprise, as many of us know, can put a couple zeros in the end of a cost of something. So it's very, very true and very relevant. Oh boy. Well, I don't know. All sorts of fun rumors and things like that. We've talked for quite a bit here, and I think that there's plenty to discuss in the future comments of this video. How many of you come back and rewatch these and then leave kind of permanent comments? Because you can do that. You can come back and rewatch this video, even though you sat here and watched it live, because all the live chat kind of disappears. So if you've said something super relevant, you should come back, rewatch the whole video from beginning to end, and then make a comment. That's what I recommend doing. So Ian, as we wrap up this episode, any final thoughts? Any new fun, exciting things? Yeah,
summer is over.
Yeah, wake me up.
Holiday
when
season
September
has begun.
Yeah,
and we're things are heating up, and it's only going to get bigger over these coming weeks. So come back to us. We're going to try to keep up with it as best as we can. But it's we saw people in the comments here talking about Oculus Go getting basically opened up for rooting. We'll get into that. Not open source, open for rooting. But we'll get into that next week. So you can do things if I've got an old Oculus Go, and we should probably do a story 5 things to do with your old dead Oculus Go.
Let's do it.
Going to lead to.
I've got 2 of them sitting. I've got one still mint in a box. As Carmack said, I saved one mint in the box. So it is end of summer, fall has begun. We're talking about doing a pumpkin spice theme on the UploadVR website. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and tweet to us. Ian's looking at me. I can actually feel him coming through his avatar. He's looking at me like, is he serious? A pumpkin spice.
You must have a Quest Pro.
Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel the heat. I'm kidding. We're not going to.
If Bosworth watches this, I'm just going to invite him on. Come on in here in your Quest Pro. Use the Oculus APIs. Just surprise us one day, and work it out with Heaney. Don't tell us, and just suddenly show up here with face, eye tracking, and show us what it's all about. Yeah, I can't think of a better demonstration for how that that Quest Pro is going to be usable for that.
I'm
feel like
putting
you
my
would have
dev hat
arbitrage.
on. Yeah, put a dev hat on here and thinking about what Heaney has
Heaney
to
will
do to
handle it.
update the
Yeah, Heaney will
avatars
handle
and
it.
all of that just to make that happen.
Heaney just disappears off the grid. He's been flown to Facebook headquarters and put in a corner and locked away. They put his cell phone in a metal bag, and yeah, that's what he's doing for a week and a half.
Yep.
Yeah, then
Whole
we'll know.
thing
If
in
we
a
don't,
Faraday cage. Yep.
Yep.
Well, all right. This has been a wonderful, fantastic episode as always, and thank you to all of you regulars and you noobs. I don't want to say noobs. It's derogatory. Thank you for listening and watching in the chat. Yes, you're great. Like, subscribe, share. How about the share button? Maybe you should share this onto your Facebook page or your Twitters or your Insta Snapchapagrams. Do that. Share it. Let your friends know. I mean, you're having a blast in here talking, listening to us and talking with each other. Bring your friends in. This is the party. This is the place to be on Mondays at whatever time.
Whenever Google decides, whenever YouTube decides,
noon
that's
PT.
where we're going to come on.
Noon Pacific time, unless Ian or I or Heaney decide otherwise. I mean, hey, it's arbitrary, but it's definitely Monday, except for when it's on Wednesdays. Oh, and don't forget on Thursdays. Yes. Yes. Skiva and James and Obzar. I see that. Sampler 19. Hi. Hello. How are you? Yes. Wonderful to have all these people in here interacting with us. Like I said, Thursday is the game show. Hopefully.
It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a real big one.
It's going to be a big one.
A lot to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. Here it comes. The next wave of VR, AR, XR, MR, PRQ, all the R's.
Don't do it.
No,
Kyle, you were doing fine. Why did you go through all the acronyms now?
All the R's. No? All right. Well, then should I just say metaverse? in the metaverse. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, hey, thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you in the future. So long. Bye-bye. Enjoy the metaverse.
Bye. Until next time.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.